Let's open with a candid question. Why do supplement labels sometimes hide crucial information, and how can that affect our results? In this talk, we'll pull back the curtain on proprietary blends, those secret formulas that promise big gains without telling you exactly what inside. You'll learn what proprietary blends really are, why they're allowed in the first place, and how they can mask underdosed or unnecessary ingredients. We'll also look at the laws that make this possible, explore how common these blends are, and discuss real-world examples where the advertised content didn't match reality. Most importantly, you'll leave with a plan to protect your health and your gains by recognizing quality products and knowing when to pass. Let's start by defining what a proprietary blend actually means. When you turn over a supplement label and see a list of exotic ingredients followed by a single total weight, you're looking at a proprietary blend. Instead of showing the amount of each component, companies lump them together under a catchy name and disclose only the combined mass. This practice has been permitted under U.S. supplement labeling regulations since 1994 and was originally intended to protect herbal formulas from being copied. The downside is that you have no idea whether the key ingredients are present at research-backed levels or whether most of the weight comes from inexpensive fillers. Understanding this definition lays the groundwork for why undisclosed doses can be problematic for both safety and effectiveness. Now that we know what a proprietary blend is, let's discuss why it matters for your training and health. Knowing what a proprietary blend is only matters if the hidden information affects you, and it does. When you don't know how much of each ingredient is in a product, it becomes impossible to assess safety. An ingredient that's harmless at a small dose might cause side effects at higher levels, while an ingredient touted for its benefits may be present only in trace amounts. Without transparent doses, you can't compare your supplement to research studies or know if you're taking a clinically effective amount. You're also at risk of underdosing or overdosing compounds like stimulants, amino acids, or botanicals, which could compromise your training or your health. With these stakes in mind, let's look at the legal framework that allows proprietary blends to exist. To understand why proprietary blends are legal, we need to look at the legislation governing supplements. The Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994 defines how companies can label their products. Under DSHEA, manufacturers are allowed to group multiple ingredients together and list only the combined weight. The ingredients must appear in order of predominance, meaning the first ingredient listed is present in the largest amount, but the exact doses remain undisclosed. This approach was meant to strike a balance between consumer information and protecting company formulas. Unfortunately, it also provides a loophole for underdosing expensive actives or padding formulas with cheap fillers. Now that we've covered the legal backdrop, let's see how widespread this practice is in the industry. Proprietary blends aren't an obscure issue. They're alarmingly common. Studies surveying supplement labels have found that roughly a third of all products include some type of blend. About 1 in 5 go so far as to label these mixtures explicitly as proprietary. What's more, the prevalence hasn't diminished with consumer awareness. In fact, it remains steady year after year. That means a significant portion of the market still hides ingredient amounts behind umbrella weights. Knowing how frequently this occurs underscores the importance of being an informed consumer. Next, we'll explore why these blends were created initially, and how their use has changed from protecting formulas to masking cost-cutting practices. Proprietary blends weren't always a tool for deception. Initially, they were devised to protect the intellectual property of companies that developed unique herbal formulas. The idea was to prevent competitors from copying exact ratios of botanicals while still informing consumers of the ingredients. Over time, however, the concept has been exploited. Today, many blends have dramatic names that suggest secret potency, but in reality, they often hide diluted or inexpensive ingredients. Marketers rely on the mystique of proprietary to justify higher prices, while manufacturers save money by sprinkling in just enough of an expensive ingredient to list it on the label. Understanding how this practice has evolved sets the stage for discussing how blends actively obscure doses. When a manufacturer lists several ingredients under one total weight, you lose all visibility into the contribution of each component. For example, a blend might weigh 5 grams and include citrulline, beta-alanine, and caffeine, but you have no way to determine if each ingredient is present at its recommended dose. This practice makes it impossible to confirm whether the formula matches the doses used in research or simply contains token amounts. It also prevents you from comparing one product with another, because you can't see which company allocates more of the blend's mass to active ingredients. Ultimately, you're left guessing whether you're getting what you paid for. To see the real impact of hidden doses, let's examine evidence from independent testing. Independent analyses of sports supplements reveal a sobering reality. more than a third of products didn't contain the ingredients listed on their labels at all. Only about 11% matched the stated amounts of key actives. Astonishingly, over 40% of the supplements tested contained none of the primary ingredient that consumers expected. These findings highlight that proprietary blends aren't the only issue. Some companies don't even include what they claim, and underdosing is rampant. The lack of oversight means that you might be paying for benefits that simply aren't present in the jar. This context makes it easier to understand specific case studies, such as creatine gummies, where the numbers are even more shocking. Let's take a closer look at that example. One recent example of underdosing involves creatine gummies marketed as containing 1.5 grams of creatine per piece. Independent testing found that the actual amount of creatine was a tiny fraction of that, around 84 milligrams, and in some samples as low as 0.75 of a milligram. That's a difference of nearly 2 orders of magnitude between what's promised and what you're actually ingesting. Such a discrepancy isn't a minor rounding error, it's outright misrepresentation. It highlights how easy it is for manufacturers to hide inadequate dosing behind proprietary blends or catchy product names. The problem isn't limited to creatine. Similar inconsistencies show up in vitamins and other supplements, as we'll see in the next example. Even seemingly straightforward nutrients like vitamin D aren't immune to dosing inaccuracies. Analyses have shown that commercial vitamin D supplements can range from roughly half of the labeled dose to more than 130% of the claimed amount. Compounded versions, such as those custom mixed by pharmacies, displayed an even wider spread from just 23% to nearly 150% of what was promised. Such variability reflects manufacturing inconsistencies and highlights the potential risks of both under and over supplementation. When you think you're correcting a deficiency or optimizing performance, you could instead be taking far too little to make a difference or so much that you risk toxicity. This uncertainty becomes even more concerning when hidden stimulants enter the picture. One of the most troubling aspects of proprietary blends is the potential for undisclosed stimulants. Caffeine and other stimulants are often grouped into blends without clear labeling of their amounts. Athletes might consume multiple products containing these hidden compounds and inadvertently exceed safe levels. Beyond the immediate risk of jitters, heart palpitations, or insomnia, there's also the possibility of triggering a positive test for banned substances. When you can't see exactly how much stimulant you're ingesting, you can't manage your intake responsibly. This lack of transparency raises serious safety concerns and underscores why trust in evidence-based dosing is so important. In the next slide, we'll talk about how these practices erode trust and undermine research. Science relies on reproducible doses to understand whether a compound works. If a label lists a proprietary blend without disclosing how much of each ingredient is present, there's no way to compare the product to the doses used in clinical trials. This lack of information makes it impossible to follow research-based guidelines or to replicate positive results. Over time, consumers become skeptical when their supplements don't deliver promised benefits, and that distrust can extend to the entire category. The credibility of responsible brands is harmed by the practices of those who hide behind proprietary blends. The good news is that you can still find quality products if you know what to look for. Let's review the hallmarks of a reputable supplement. You don't need to be a chemist to make smarter supplement choices. Start by looking for labels that list every ingredient along with the exact dose. Transparency is the first sign of a reputable product. Next, check for third-party testing or certifications from organizations like NSF Certified for Sport, Informed Sport, or USP. These seals indicate that the formula has been independently verified for purity and label accuracy. Finally, cross-reference the ingredient list and amounts with published research to ensure the product contains evidence-based doses. Quality supplements may cost a bit more, but they deliver on their claims and avoid the guesswork inherent in proprietary blends. With these criteria in mind, we can address the relationship between price and quality. When it comes to supplements, the old adage, "you get what you pay for," often holds true. Bargain products may entice you with low prices, but they frequently skimp on expensive actives or rely on proprietary blends to hide underdosing. By contrast, quality formulas that provide full disclosure and undergo testing tend to cost more because they invest in higher grade ingredients, manufacturing standards, and verification. Paying a bit extra for transparent dosing can yield better results and peace of mind. Instead of being swayed by exotic blend names or flashy packaging, consider allocating your budget toward products that prioritize efficacy and honesty. The role of third-party testing becomes even clearer when we look at certifications. Third-party certifications serve as an external check on a company's claims. NSF Certified for Sport and Informed Sport verify that a supplement contains exactly what the label says and is free of banned substances, making them particularly valuable for athletes subject to drug testing. USP certification focuses on verifying ingredient purity, potency, and quality. When a product carries one of these seals, it means the manufacturer has submitted to rigorous audits and testing. These programs reduce the risk of contaminants, mislabeled doses, or undisclosed stimulants, giving you confidence that what you're taking matches what's advertised. As more companies submit to these programs, the industry begins to shift toward transparency, a trend we'll explore next. The supplement market is responding to educated consumers who demand honesty. An increasing number of companies now disclose every ingredient and dose, often accompanied by third-party testing results. These brands recognize that informed customers are willing to pay for integrity. As more people vote with their wallets, transparency becomes a competitive advantage, pressuring other manufacturers to follow suit. The shift is especially evident in pre-workout and sports supplements, where consumers are tired of secret blends and want to know exactly what fuels their performance. Supporting transparent brands not only helps you make better decisions, it also encourages broader industry reform. To understand why secrecy persists, we need to look at the motives behind proprietary blends. Companies that rely on proprietary blends often cite the need to protect their secret formula, but the reality is usually less noble. Cloaked ingredients create a sense of mystique that can be leveraged in marketing. The implication is that a unique proprietary ratio is the key to extraordinary results. At the same time, listing only a total weight allows manufacturers to include tiny amounts of costly actives while filling the rest of the blend with cheaper substances, thereby cutting costs. Hiding doses also protects profit margins by preventing consumers from comparing exact formulas or realizing they could replicate the combination for less. Understanding these incentives underscores the importance of consumer vigilance and collective action, topics we'll cover in the next slide. Ultimately, consumers hold the power to change industry practices. By choosing to buy supplements with fully disclosed ingredients and clinically backed doses, you send a message that secrecy isn't acceptable. Don't hesitate to contact companies and ask for detailed ingredient lists and rationales for each dose. Responsive brands will have nothing to hide. Share your knowledge with friends and training partners so they understand the issues around proprietary blends and underdosing. Educated demand drives supply. When enough people insist on transparency, companies will either adapt or be left behind. But consumer action alone isn't enough. Regulatory reform is also needed to ensure industry-wide standards. Meaningful change requires both market pressure and policy shifts. Updating the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act to require disclosure of individual ingredient amounts would close the loophole that allows proprietary blends to obscure dosing. Enhanced FDA oversight and enforcement could ensure that supplements contain what their labels claim and that manufacturing practices meet quality standards. Regulators could also encourage or mandate evidence-based formulation, requiring manufacturers to justify doses with research. These steps would go a long way towards safeguarding consumers from underdosed or mislabeled products and would level the playing field for companies committed to transparency. While we wait for reforms, you can still take practical steps today. Now that you know the problems and the potential solutions, what can you do? Start by reading supplement labels carefully and questioning any formula that relies on vague proprietary blends. Priority fundamentals: sleep, nutrition, and consistent training before turning to pills or powders for an edge. When you do choose supplements, opt for products that list each ingredient and dose, and look for third-party certifications. Support companies that are transparent and evidence-driven, and encourage others to do the same by sharing what you've learned. These simple steps will protect your health, save you money, and help shift the market toward honesty. Finally, we'll recap the core messages of this presentation. As we wrap up, remember the main points. Proprietary blends are allowed by law, but hide the amounts of individual ingredients, making it impossible to know whether a product matches research-backed doses. Studies show that underdosing and mislabeling are common, and even reputable nutrients can vary widely from their label claims. Cheap products often cut corners, while quality supplements invest in dosing fidelity and verification. By prioritizing transparency, evidence-based ingredients, and third-party testing, you can maximize the return on your supplement investment and avoid unnecessary risks. Your dollars and your voice matter. Support honest brands, share your knowledge, and help drive the industry toward greater accountability. With these insights, you're empowered to make informed choices and protect your gains.